My name is Ferdinand Visco. I am the author of the book Growing Up Italian American, and I also serve on the board of directors of the Italian Heritage and Culture Committee of New York, Incorporated. This year, the committee's theme is Michelangelo, an Italian genius. Michelangelo Buonarroti was more than a sculptor, more than a painter, more than an architect, and more than a poet. He was a genius, one of the greatest minds the world has ever known. At just 23 years old, Michelangelo carved La Pietà, a breathtaking image of the Virgin Mary cradling her crucified son. So moving, so divine in its perfection that many believed no mere mortal could have created it. At 26, he sculpted David, 17 feet tall, and carved from a single block of discarded marble. Every muscle is anatomically correct. More than a Renaissance masterpiece, David became a timeless symbol of strength, beauty, and the human spirit. Michelangelo believed every block of marble held a hidden figure within. "I saw the angel in the marble," he said, "and carved until I set him free." With nothing but a hammer and chisel, he released biblical characters from stone. Michelangelo was a master of the fresco technique. He began with a full-scale drawing called a cartoon, then perforated its outlines. Placing the cartoon over wet plaster, he used a cloth bag filled with charcoal dust to pounce the design onto the wall. The powdered dots formed a guide. With speed and skill, he painted directly onto the damp plaster, fusing pigment and surface into a luminous, lasting image. On the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo painted the creation of man, not lying down as legend claims, but standing, neck craned upward for 4 relentless years. In a bold act of genius, Michelangelo portrays God and man as equal in size, honoring the belief that man was created in God's image. Yet it is God who commands the scene. With a piercing gaze and an outstretched finger, he reaches towards Adam, not as an equal, but as the divine creator. In that charged space between their fingers, life itself is about to ignite. Years later, he returned to that same chapel to paint the Last Judgment, a vast emotional vision of heaven and hell, redemption and despair. Michelangelo also reshaped the very skyline of Rome. At age 71, he was appointed chief architect of St. Peter's Basilica. "I build for eternity," he declared. Though he would not live to see the great dome completed, his design still rises high above the eternal city, a lasting monument to his faith, his vision, and his genius. It's no wonder he was called God's architect. In 1964, La Pietà crossed the Atlantic to appear at the New York World's Fair. Italian Americans stood in line for hours, some with tears in their eyes, to see the masterpiece, to feel the pride of knowing that Michelangelo was one of them. He was an Italian. He was a genius, and their genius. Michelangelo was also a poet. His verses reveal a soul grappling with beauty, inner struggle, and the heavy burdens of being a perfectionist. While he expressed a deep platonic affection for a young Roman nobleman named Tommaso dei Cavalieri, it was in his 60s that Michelangelo formed a profound bond, often interpreted as love, with Vittoria Colonna. She was a noblewoman, a poet, a widow, nearly 20 years younger than him. They shared a similar view of religion, poetry, and art. She was his muse, patron, and confidant, and they were so close that he was present at her death. His poetry from that period reveals lamentations about his age and the inevitability of death. which he believed stood in the way of his experiencing deeper romantic fulfillment. His most famous sonnet begins, Giunto è già il corso della vita mia. The course of my life has already arrived, through stormy seas, in a fragile boat, to the common port, where all must give account and reason for every evil deed. And when translated, a sonnet which he wrote reads, Love, who with a cruel dart pierced my heart in age not youth, has robbed me of sweet peace. Michelangelo never retired. He was 88 years old when he died. He was still creating until the very end. When he was 87, while still working on the Dome of St. Peter's, he said, Ancora imparo. I am still learning. That was Michelangelo, a man whose genius defied time, a soul that never stopped reaching higher. More than 450 years after his death, his spirit still speaks, his art still teaches, his legacy still inspires, and even now we still learn from him.